Welcome to the Movie Zone. Today we are recapping the 2002 biography drama film, The Pianist, the real story of the struggles of a Polish-Jewish pianist as he tries to survive in Nazi-occupied Germany. As usual, spoilers ahead, so be ready. Let's begin. The year is 1939. On a September evening in Poland, Władysław Spielman, a pianist for a local radio, is working, playing a live show on the air. Even as bombs and huge explosions occur outside, the man doesn't falter and continues to play. Finally, when an explosion occurs right next to his room, Władysław is forced to stop and rush outside. While evacuating the building, he finds a friend of his who introduces him to his sister, Dorota. Spielman is immediately attracted to her, but in this new world, Spielman will find no place for love. The world has not been the same in the past few years due to the Second World War, and recently, the Polish army has been defeated in 3 weeks by the German army. There is chaos among the Polish people, and back at Władysław's home, his parents have started to pack their belongings. Władysław returns home to find his parents, his brother, and 2 sisters packing to leave Poland. The family is agitated and afraid of living in fear and is planning to flee Poland as fast as they can. Władysław and his siblings are not keen to make such a move. They have spent the entirety of their lives here and wish to live and die in the same place. At first, the parents are adamant about leaving, but when they hear on the radio that both England and France have declared war on Germany, they decide to stay. The family even celebrates, believing the war will end quickly once the Allies are able to engage Germany. Unfortunately for them, the German army soon marches into Warsaw and the conditions for Jews quickly deteriorate. The German government makes new restrictions regarding liquid assets. The Jews would no longer be able to have more than 2,000 zlotys. The family discusses what to do with their remaining liquid assets, as they certainly can't leave it in German-controlled banks, nor can they have it with them. Amidst the chaotic discussion, Władysław suggests placing all the money into the musical instruments, while placing the physical assets, like gold, under the flower pots. Later, Władysław meets with Dorota, who accompanies him around Warsaw to learn of the injustice Jewish people have to face under the new Nazi regime. Businesses that were once friendly to them now won't allow their patronage. The Jews are forbidden from entering several restaurants and other establishments. They are not even allowed to walk in parks. Another declaration even forces the Jews to wear a proper emblem representing their race every time they head outside. The atrocities of the Germans increase rapidly in Warsaw, and life for the Jews worsens day by day. Nazi rule forces all Jew families, including Władysław's, to move to the Jewish ghetto established by Nazi rule. As the huge mob of Jews are escorted to the ghetto, Władysław meets Dorota once more, but he knows that perhaps this would be their final meeting. The Holocaust is starting, and the family, though well-to-do before the war, is reduced to a subsistence level, although they are still better off than many of their fellow Jews in the overcrowded, starving, disease-ridden ghetto. As soon as all the Jews have been moved, the Germans build a huge wall separating the Jew district from the rest. The next few days, Władysław and his brother visit the market on a regular basis, trying to sell their belongings to the locals, but they barely sell anything at all. To make it worse, hundreds and thousands of Jews are brought every day into the ghetto, worsening the living conditions. Despite this, Władysław manages to find a job as a pianist in the richer side of the ghetto and turns down the offer to join the Jew police from their family friend Itzhak. Although he does intend to become part of an uprising against the Jews, his job as a pianist makes him too innocent to be taken seriously by the others. One night, as the Spielman family is having dinner, they suddenly hear German soldiers banging next door. They quickly turn off the lights and see the SS march into a house across the street and arrest a family. One of the men in the family is in a wheelchair and is unable to get up when ordered, so the SS brutally murders him by throwing him off the balcony to his death. The SS does not sympathize with the family either, as the rest of them are shot to death and run over by a truck if they manage to survive. Spielman and his family can only watch and sob at this atrocity before their very eyes. Troubles keep brewing for the Jews as the German government declares to deport anyone without an employment certificate from a German company to the labor camps. Using his friends, Vladislav manages to find certificates for all of his family except for his father. However, one of his friends involved in conspiring against the Germans manages to use his influence and secure a certificate for his father. 2 years pass by, and now it's 1942. The Spielmans have all been using their certificates to somehow manage to survive in the harsh ghetto. However, all that is about to change soon. One night, as the family is all together, some German soldiers barge in and take them out into the courtyard alongside several other Jew families. The Germans then select people at random from the group to stay behind, including Henrik and his sister Helena, while the rest are told to pack their bags for another relocation to Umschlagplatz. In August of 1942, the family is now in Umschlagplatz and they are reunited with Henrik and Helena. They had left the ghetto to be with their parents. The whole family then waits for the transport to arrive, and Vladislav's father uses the final 20 zlotys of the family's savings to buy a piece of candy from a boy. Each family member eats a tiny morsel of candy, their last meal together. The train soon arrives, and as the family heads to their impending deaths, Vladislav is suddenly yanked from the lines by Itzhak Heller. He tries to force his way back, but the line of Jewish policemen do not let him reunite with his family. The Jews are stripped of their belongings and loaded into packed carriages of the train, leading them to concentration camps. Vladislav watches the rest of his family board the train, never to be seen again. Vladislav, with nowhere else to go, heads to the same cafe where he used to play. He hides under the piano's floors, alongside his boss who has hidden there too. After things die down outside, Vladislav blends in with the 10% of Jews the Nazis have kept alive in the ghetto as slaves. Helena and Henrik would have been there if they weren't so foolish. Vladislav is put to work under grueling, abusive conditions, rebuilding a bombed-out building. The Germans were preparing the ghetto for the arrival of a new batch of Jews from all over the country. Over the coming days, Vladislav learns of an uprising being planned by some of the Jews and promises to help them if they ever needed it. Vladislav is then given a new job supplying the workers with building supplies after he is brutally beaten for letting some bricks fall during his work. Vladislav and the Jews are allowed to bring in 3 sacks of potatoes and 1 loaf of bread each from the non-Jew part of Warsaw every day. The Jews use this opportunity to smuggle in guns and other weapons for the resistance fighters on the other side of the wall. At one point, he's almost caught by a German officer, but luckily he survives the close call. This makes Vladislav realize that it's far more dangerous to be inside the city. With the help of a friend, Majorek, the same man who managed to use his connections to get Vladislav's father the employment papers, he escapes. Alongside a few other men in the light of day somehow, Vladislav manages to escape the German forces and enters the Polish side of the city of Warsaw. He has only one place to go, and that is to his friend Janina. Janina welcomes him with a warm embrace alongside Adzej Boguchi, another one of his friends, who is very happy to see Vladislav alive. The couple, however, cannot keep him longer than a day with them and decide to send him to his caretaker, Gibzinski, a man of the Polish resistance. Gibzinski is to hide Vladislav for one night, after which he will be settled elsewhere, who hides him for one night. That night, Gibzinski opens up a secret door behind his cupboard where Vladislav is to sleep. He tells Vladislav about a vacant apartment nearby where he can spend the rest of his life. The next day, Gibzinski takes him to some vacant apartment near the ghetto wall. Although it is very close to German surveillance, it is free of any dangers. The only issue is that he must be silent indefinitely since several non-Jews also live in the building and believe the apartment is empty. Gibzinski assures Vladislav of a constant food supply through Janina on a weekly basis. There, Vladislav watches part of the Jewish ghetto uprising of April to May 1943, for which he helped smuggle the weapons. He watches as the men on the other side fight violently against the Germans, and also watches weeks later as the uprising is finally crushed. All of the Jews involved are either killed in action, or killed after being captured. With the Polish resistance finally down, Gibzinski wants to move Vladislav as the Nazis have found the weapons of the Polish resistance, forcing Gibzinski to be on the run also. Gibzinski says it's only a matter of time before the Nazis find the apartment Vladislav is hiding in. But despite the dangers involved, Vladislav decides to stay put, feeling safer where he is. Gibzinski gives him an address to go to in case of an emergency and leaves with one final message: do not get caught alive. A few more months pass by and Vladislav is still in the same apartment, spending the days one by one, hoping for better days to come when one day he has an accident. He accidentally breaks a few dishes. The noise blows his cover, and the neighbors are instantly aware of him being there. Vladislav grabs everything that he can and goes outside, where he is almost caught by an angry German woman who suspects him of being Jewish. Vladislav goes to the emergency address he was given, where he surprisingly meets Dorota, who is now married and pregnant. Dorota and her husband allow Vladislav to stay there for the night, and the next day, they take him to another vacant apartment. The conditions in living here are the same as before. He has to live in silence, but it's especially hard this time around because this apartment has a piano, but the need for silence keeps him from playing. The time around his new caretaker, Zalas, is very slack about smuggling in food, and Vladislav once more faces starvation and at one point almost dies of jaundice. Dorota and her husband visit him just at the right time, finding him gravely ill. They report that Zalas had been collecting money from generous and unwitting donors and had pocketed it all, leaving Vladislav to die in isolation. Vladislav recovers in no time to see the larger 1944 Warsaw Uprising, in which the Poles tried to retake control of their city. The Germans present a much larger resistance this time around, and soon the Germans start attacking the buildings as well. Yet again, he has to flee. The revolting Polish army had hoped for the Russians to come to aid them, but the aid could not reach there in time, and the German soldiers crush the revolt yet again. Vladislav manages to hide in the abandoned hospital that has been across the street from his second hideout. After beating the Polish uprising, however, the angry Germans have by now decided to burn down the entirety of Warsaw to ashes. Vladislav somehow manages to flee yet again. He escapes the hospital and jumps back over the wall into the ghetto. The same ghetto, which was once a place crowded with sick and hungry Jews, is now an abandoned, desolate wasteland of bricks and rubble. He stays there, rummaging through burned-out buildings to find something to eat, and continues to hide, until one night a Nazi officer, Captain Wilhelm Hosenfeld, finds him. To prove to Hosenfeld that he is a pianist, he plays a somber and brief rendition of Chopin's Ballad in G minor, the first time he has played since he worked in the Jewish ghetto years before. Hosenfeld, moved by Spielmann's playing, helps him survive, allowing him to continue hiding in the attic even after the house is established as the captain's headquarters. Hosenfeld eventually abandons the house with his staff when the Russian army draws closer to Warsaw. Hosenfeld gives Vladislav a final parcel of food and his overcoat. As the German captain leaves, he tells Vladislav that he only needs to survive for a few more days, as the Russian army is soon to arrive and liberate Warsaw. Vladislav sees Polish partisans and, overcome with joy, goes outside to meet his countrymen. However, when they see his coat and German outfit, the soldiers start firing at him. Vladislav rushes back into the same house and cries out that he is Polish. With his arms raised, Vladislav heads outside, and upon closely looking at him, the soldier realizes he is Polish. In the spring, newly freed Poles walk past an improvised Russian prisoner of war camp. The Nazi soldiers have been kept in confinement, similar to how they treated the Jews. Among the German soldiers is Hosenfeld. The Poles hurl insults at the Germans through the fence, but when Hosenfeld hears that one of the Poles is a musician, he goes to the fence and tells him that he helped Vladislav. The German captain begs the prisoners to send his request to Vladislav to help him and return the favor of his kindness. The Polish musician turns out to own a recording business later, and Vladislav is now working for his station. when he returns back with Vladislav to the site to petition the Russians to release Hosenfeld. The Russians have departed without a trace. Vladislav is unable to help the one German who had helped him survive. Hosenfeld died in a Soviet gulag in 1952. Although Vladislav's entire family was killed during the war, he managed to survive through sheer determination and lived to be an old man, dying in Poland at 2000 at the age of 88. What do you think about this movie? Tell us in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. See you next time.